into it. And I need my notes to quit falling, so. Would you like to start out with a reading, or would you like to start out with a question?
Maybe, let's start with a question.
All right, so, I know that this book is personal to you. So, how much of that story would you like to share this evening?
I can share parts. So, this was highly fictionalized, saying this for the family members in the audience. Version of telling of my mother, and my aunt is here as well. Their mothers. And the two of them always fascinated me because one was more, traditional in the sense of greatest generation mother, where she wasn't super traditional, and the other one, but she was around, and the other one was very non-traditional, in that she was married many times, and she moved around a lot, and so I just thought, and then at the end of their lives, they ended up just a few miles from each other in West Palm Beach, and so I always, and then they, there was a kind of detente declared, and the relations thought of it, and they started spending some time together, so I always thought that was just very interesting.
Yeah.
And so that was my jumping off point. And then took it to, like I said, a very highly fictionalized place. So, and then the synchronized swimming came in at some point.
We're all falling apart now. Go ahead, keep talking.
Well, that was a throwaway line in the first draft. And an editor I was working with at the time was like, pull that out. That's where you should that's kind of your pivot point. Do the story around that, which was great, but also I knew nothing about synchronized swimming.
So for those of you who aren't yet familiar with the book, although I'm sure you all did your homework before you came, because you all love Sarah. The book is about 4 friends of retirement age and beyond who come together in an effort to save their condo community, and they form a synchronized swimming team and go for the money.
Yes. So then that kind of the structure of the book is this countdown, the 3 weeks until the competition. And so Sherry, who is the middle-aged manager in all this, she's trying to help the mother whose apartment building is threatening to go condo, because this was at a time in South Florida where there was a lot of change from, kind of traditional Florida, where you could maybe retire just on a pension and Social Security, and then to a more upscale Florida, which I think it is now. West Palm Beach is a very different place now than it was at the time. And so one mother needs her daughter's help to help save the apartment building. The other mother, who's calls her down to Florida, is sick and dying, but she doesn't want to tell her daughter because she wants to spend time with her without being a patient. She has lung cancer and she's refusing treatment. And so then at the same time, because everything happens in life all at once, Sherry's daughter is pregnant with her first baby and her marriage is falling apart. And so Sherry, who carries a notebook everywhere to, solve every problem there is, she sees a notice for this South Florida Senior Synchronized Swimming Championship, and she's like, aha, that is the answer to all. I get my time down here with my sick mother, and I can get treatment for her, although that doesn't really work. And then I can also save this apartment building, and then I can also give my pregnant daughter something to do to distract her. And so that's sort of where the story coalesces, and then you hear then it's the story of this family as well. The 3 generations of women.
Yeah, and we're going to get into that. I have some questions. Would you like to give us a taste with a reader?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, let's do that.
Okay.
It was, I moved it over here.
Okay, oh no, that's fine. So this, I'm going to read a few pages from when Laura, the daughter, arrives in Florida, and this is her first moment with the 70-something-year-old women of Soleil City who are, they're not really set up to do a team sport, we'll just say. There's no I in team, but these women have not learned that. So it starts there. 18 days until the competition, and this is Laura's story. 3 hours after arriving in Florida, Laura was already standing at the side of the pool at Soleil City, full of regret for not trying on her maternity swimsuit before buying it. She wasn't sure who had devised the design for this particular garment, but was absolutely convinced it was done without an actual pregnant person being within 10 miles. It was enormous in the chest, tight around her belly, and nearly obscene around her, we'll say, buttocks. It's true. Now, there were 5 elderly women, oh honey, do not say elderly out loud around this crew, her mother had said, standing in the pool and looking up at her for direction. Laura was glad that the heat provided an adequate explanation for the sweat pouring from her armpits. She had agreed to come to West Palm Beach because it wasn't Minneapolis. Other than that, she had little confidence in her abilities. On the plane ride, as Laura sat with a pad of paper and pen on her tray table, ready to work out a comprehensive coaching plan, she had gotten no further than the first item of business, a pep talk. "Who can do this?" Laura shouted. Possibly us. I put the chances at around 30-70 at this point, and the odds are not in our favor, Phyllis declared. "No, that's not what I want to hear," Laura said, attempting to channel the kind of male sports coach who wore a full warm-up outfit on the sidelines instead of a suit, as if he might be called onto the field to play at any moment. "Who can do this?" "Us," the women grumbled, knowing that any other answer would prolong this exercise. "I can't hear you." "Us," they said with enough power that the response was deemed sufficient. "We'll get there, ladies," Laura said. "Every day we'll build up the power of possibility and see that this journey is taking us to places we only thought we could go." "What the hell does that mean?" Alona asked Dale. Dale shrugged in a way that imitated Alona's own usual response. The women looked away from Laura and immediately continued their own conversation about the flower pot that had fallen from a second-story balcony onto the cement below just before this practice, barely missing Donna in the process. "It was dead Barbara," Evelyn had said. "That B word is haunting us because we don't miss her." Laura thought that the missing balustrade in front of where the flower pot had been and the rocking chair behind the pot probably had a lot more to do with its movement, but she sensed immediately that her opinion on the matter wasn't needed. When Laura was captain of her dance line, her teammates were a group of girls who had been taking dance classes nearly as long as she had. They had auditioned for their spots, with the coach leaving out anyone who had less than superior dance skills. When dance-specific language was used during practice, there was no need to pause to define a single word. Everyone was on the inside. Everyone was ready to go the moment they stepped foot in the gym on the first day. Everyone was 16. At 16, you could be coached, then molded. At 16, you would listen to the thing that the person in front of you had learned to say through their own years of hard-won experience. At 75, you didn't want to listen to crap. Knowing only that she had to get the women moving, Laura sent them on a series of sprints, swimming back and forth across the width of the pool. After they had completed 6 of these, she asked the women to form a line in the pool so they could all catch their breath. "Listen," Donna said, "you're going to try to make us do some backflips, aren't you? I'm telling you now, if you make us do backflips, we will drown. We will go in the water and we won't resurface. So you can decide if you want to deal with that." There are actually a lot of moves in synchronized swimming that use a backflip," Laura said. "The vertical and the jump over, for example." Though she hadn't written much in her notepad on the plane, Laura had managed to read a few chapters of their synchronized swimming workbook that she had checked out 10 minutes before her local library closed the previous evening. "Laura, honey," Evelyn tried gently, "this isn't about not wanting to ruin our hair. There's a heck of a lot we can do, but that's not one of those things. No backflips. Also," Alona began, "sometimes people are thrown into the air." "I think that's more in cheerleading." "Oh no, I've seen it at the Olympics," Phyllis clarified. "We can't do that either." "Got it," Laura conceded easily. She smiled. "And anything where our heads are very close to each other, that might be hard. A few of us, like Donna for instance, have terrible eyesight, and it will end with a cracked head." "Phyllis, that's a lie and you know it. My eyesight is fine." "You can't drive anymore. You lost your license," Phyllis said. Donna flinched. "Because that cop had it in for me. He made me retake the driving test after one little mistake. You hit a child who was crossing the street in front of the school." Donna swatted away the accusation. "I tapped him. He got right back up. He barely felt it, Donna. He broke his arm. He was supposed to pitch at the Little League World Championship, the highlight of his young life." Well, everyone has disappointments. A good lesson to learn at 11.
segment, because that's really a great introduction to the characters. So Sarah and I did not know each other before I was approached to help with this launch, and not only was I happy to be available, but I looked at the cover and I looked at the pitch for the book, and it was about, I was like, give me friends who come together on a quest and make them all quirky and give me something unusual, and I am all in. All I had to see was these women in their bathing caps on the cover, and I said, that is my kind of book. And it, that reading perfectly encapsulates, your characters. It's humor with heart. That's how I would describe it. Yeah, maybe a little extra heart in there, extra heart. It'll twist you a little bit at certain parts of the story. So I start with that because a lot of the early pitches that I saw for the book really emphasized the women's friendship. And I think that is at the core of the book. But even more so, I read this to be a book about motherhood. How we come to be, how everybody has their own journey in coming to be a mother, how it changes them, how they react to motherhood, how they experience motherhood. And you have 4 points of view from 4 different women in this book, and they all are mothers or set to become mothers. And since writing a true character is all about helping your readers experience what they really want and what they really desire, how would you describe each of those 4 mothers and what they really, really need from being the experience of being a mother?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Dale. Sorry.
That's okay.
Dale kind of had motherhood thrust upon her. She was a teenager in the 40s and probably did not plan to have a child when she did, and was always very ambivalent about it. In the story, her husband goes to war while she's still pregnant, and spends the first 4 years of this child's life as a single mother, and she does it. I mean, the child's alive, but but it was difficult for her. It's kind of her war sacrifice in a way. And then Marlis is unable to have children. She finds that out as a teenager, and so she, her goal always was to, she's beautiful, and so the comment the doctor made at the time was, well, you're still pretty, maybe you could get married anyway. And so
that scene really twists your heart when she finds out that she can't have a baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll stop on that page and take a break. It's sad.
And her own mother is like, oh, good for you, because she had many of them and didn't hear from them either. So then, she finds a way to become a mother. And then Sherry is sort of, I think the mother we're maybe more familiar with, the 20, well, it's late 20th century, but late 20th century, 21st century mother where, it shifts. Like, it's no longer about you and then how do the kids fit in your life. It's the kids are the center of the life, and then how do you still live a life around those kids?
That was the era, the age of mothers we were raised by.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, now we think like, oh, we were latchkey kids and we had chocolate chips and Coke for breakfast, or maybe that was just me. I was in high school, and that wasn't when I was
Raised on hose water and neglect.
Right, exactly. But, I mean, for the time, like, they were over-involved for, according to their mothers, their greatest generation mothers was like, back up, like, why are you giving them so much? And then, of course, Laura, she, having a child at the beginning of the 21st century, she was going to be an entirely different mother, who is, centered on her child. And that's where she sort of sees these different examples of motherhood where it's, you're living for the child, or how do you still have a life and have that child enhance the life.
Yeah.
And so, there are different examples, and I think the heart of all of them is there's love, but it's just how deeply do they give themselves over to the role.
Yeah. And each one of them, I would say, expresses their love differently.
Yes, very differently.
Yeah. And, very differently. And thankfully, the characters well over the course of the book, too. They all discover new things about each other. That being said, often books about motherhood, wonderful books often, they portray it as difficult but filled with joy. And there are a lot of scenes in this book, it's not a downer, as you can tell, but there are a lot of scenes in this book that explore the helplessness and the loneliness of motherhood. And I want to read one of them. This is not to prove that I've read the book. This is really, because this
It looks reasonably dog-eared.
yeah. I'm a good student, I did my homework. So this is Dale, and Dale is the secondary mother, the primary mother, yeah.
The secondary mother.
The second,
yes.
she's the one who was Sherry's birth mother and raised her until she was about 5, and then gets a divorce from her father. But this is, you mentioned her sacrifice to her child when she raises Sherry alone for the first couple of years while her husband is off at war.
Yeah.
And I pulled a segment that that demonstrates that. Dale is at home, and really to set this up, she's trying to describe to her daughter what it was like to be her mother to be a mother during that time. And in the scene, she's at home at her parents' house because her husband is at war. She's got this baby, and she's living in her parents' house. And she starts by saying, this is her beginning the story. I haven't ever told anyone this, not even Ed, her husband, when he returned home from the war. But I hadn't slept in 2 months. I had only been eating as much as I could with you against me until you began to cry, and my mother asked me to leave the table. My nerves, she would say, until she banned me from the dining room altogether. My best friend at the time, Agnes, would come over, but only long enough to know that she wanted to leave again. I'd go on walks, putting my coat over my shoulders so I could continue to hold you, and then come back home because all I could see was the emptiness of the city and the sadness. Anytime I saw the color yellow, even on one of your outfits, I would feel my knees go weak because that was the color of the telegram envelopes coming to tell me that Ed was dead. That's a haunting scene if you think about really what she carried with her. And because she only raises her for about 5 years and then their relationship has been strained, those are the haunting memories that she carries with her too as a mother.
Yeah.
And so I know the inspiration for this was, came from your own family. I got the sense when I was reading it, was some of it you, was it a way to sort of piece together some of the questions that will never be answered, to imagine them in your own head?
I think maybe, that, early motherhood, those first 6 weeks of motherhood are, they're very lonely.
They are.
Terrible.
Yeah.
I'll say it, they're terrible weeks.
And no one can prepare you for it.
No one can prepare you. I kind of likened it to having like an abusive boyfriend, because here's this child who, you're giving all of yourself to, and they can't even look it. Their eyes won't even focus on you. And you just want to do everything to please them, and you're getting no response back, not even a smile. That comes later. And so I think it is a really difficult time. And then, I've always been intrigued by the war years, because the stories are always of, the heroics of the soldiers, but those women left behind, what they were holding up as well. And then Dale and Marlis, they'd meet at the Charleston boat yard, Navy Yard. They're both working for the war effort, not because they're patriots, but because it paid more. And they had this moment of independence where they were both, they were working women, and they were respected. They got to go to the sailors bar and, legitimately go, because they were the ones actually doing the work. And then that was all taken away from them after the war. It's like, thank you, bye, you're done.
Like a glimpse.
Yep, go home. And so that's always fascinated me too, because, we had feminism, we had this like women-led country for a few years, and then it took another, 35 until we just got cursory senses of that again, and you could still say it's not there.
Right.
Look at the upper echelons of business and government, and it's all male still,
Mm-hmm,
so.
yeah. Must have been interesting too to, write about 4 generations.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, I mean,
three. And then
3 generations,
one
really,
coming,
but,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, that transition is, Sherry is talking about how, I don't think this is spoiler, I think it's on the book copy, but one of the mother is dying. And so she's saying, at that point, like, I'm not a daughter anymore, then I'm
Yeah.
just, and then she's about to have a grandchild, so then she's gonna be a grandmother. And so she loses that kind of primary position as mother, and she gets knocked down a peg, and then the daughter ascends into motherhood, and then, her child's gonna be the granddaughter. So it's this like transitional shift from generation to generation, and I think even like, my kids are not there, they're in high school. But, thinking of, you can just see this in the society around you. Everything was for us and about us when we were in our 20s and 30s and maybe early 40s. And now that we're not, it's shifting. Now everything is everyone younger, and you do feel, you feel a little pushed aside and disempowered, and it's I think that's hard to know, like, especially going from mother to grandmother. A lot of people love the position, but at the same time, like, you're secondary on the motherhood docket, or on the Mother's Day docket, like.
You don't know what your role is.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. My mother-in-law tells me that all the time. She's a lovely person, but I'm like, well, you've been a grandmother for 21 years, I think it's time to figure it out. She's not watching this.
Yeah.
Okay, one last question that I wanna ask, and then we're gonna play a game, because I always play a game
Okay.
in these things, I think it's fun. Did you have a favorite scene to write?
Well, I can't get into the scene too much because that would really kind of throw it all off. But there's a scene of sabotage, I suppose I can say sabotage.
Yeah.
Where, there's 2 different types of writers. There's plotters and pantsers. So a plotter has the note cards, and they've done a wonderful outline, and they know everything that's gonna happen. And then there's pantsers who just write, and then they figure it out as they go. I am very definitely that person, which means there's 8, 9 drafts, but it also means I can discover things as I write. And the sabotage scene came out of nowhere. I was just
Really?
I was just writing, and one day, and it came out, and I was like, wow.
Yeah.
But that was it. That was perfect. So that was probably my favorite scene.
Yeah. Oh, I can see that. I can
Yeah.
see that. I love it when my characters talk to me, they tell me things.
Yeah.
It sounds like you need mental health treatment, but they really do listen to you and talk to you, and
Yeah.
do you have that?
I think about them later, and I definitely, have favorites, I think. But then, one day, and then I'll write a good scene for another character and be like, oh, well, that's better than that one. So,
Yeah, right.
pushed aside. But yeah, they don't like talk to me, but I do think of them in the morning when I'm on a walk and stuff. I'm kind of thinking, what would they do next? And
Yeah. Oh, mine will not talk to me. Yeah. All right, let's play rapid fire round. Now, you cannot think too hard about these. This is
Okay.
a rapid fire
Okay.
round,
Okay.
okay? And they all are a little bit centered around your book.
Okay.
There's 10 of them. Okay, so number 1, Florida or Minnesota?
Minnesota.
All right, beach or mountains?
Beach.
Ocean or lake?
Ocean.
Ocean or pool?
Ocean.
Wine or cocktail?
Wine.
Okay, synchronized swimming or speed events?
Oh, I mean, neither. Casual lap swimming?
Oh, but you
Lazy
can
river.
watch them, so like if you
Oh,
had your
watching
choice.
them.
Yeah,
Oh, probably speed.
really, okay.
Yeah.
Did this turn you off, synchronized swimming, at all?
No, I mean, I
Not because of your answer, I'm just
the
curious.
artistry. I mean, it's actually, it's very dated to say synchronized swimming. It actually is artistic swimming.
Oh, it's artistic swimming, okay.
But I,
We all learned something here tonight,
yes,
thank you.
that's what in the Olympics, that's what you'll hear. I mean, they'll correct themselves 100 times, but that's what you'll hear.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, professional or amateur sports?
Oh, professional.
Okay.
I think any mother who sat through child abuse would say professional.
One piece or two piece?
Oh, one piece.
Okay, now this is a little bit of an inside joke, and once you've read the book, you'll get it. Cyndi Lauper or the Carpenters?
Oh, the Carpenters.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Number 10, sink or swim?
I mean, you gotta swim.
Gotta swim, gotta swim.
If you're gonna go in there and try to write a book, I mean, I think you're gonna say swim, right?
You're gonna say swim. I would worry about you if you said sink. All right, you wanna open it up to questions?
Sure.
Okay, so what we'll do, because it can be hard to hear, is we'll make sure to repeat the questions as people ask them. And if you wanna stay here seated, or if you wanna wander around, it's up to you.
I'll just stand. Phoebe Erickson.
Hello, Sarah. I really appreciate how your dress matches the cover of your books.
Margot Robbie, Barbie.
Can you tell us a little bit about your journey as a writer? Because I know this is not your first attempt at writing a book.
No, it's not. So Joanna, my best friend is here. She has read past attempts, and so I wrote a book before this. I sent it out to agents, and even as the night before I started this process, I was like, I don't know how this is gonna go. It didn't go well, so I ditched it, which I actually felt totally fine doing, and then started this book. And the idea for this was always kind of in the back of my mind, and it was like, oh, I'll do that the next book. Well, you have to write a book so you can have a next book. So I went with it. I started the process, and as the husband that both women share, at one point the book was called like The Two Mrs. Kellys. The husband that they both share is named Ed Kelly, and so I was going to the Y one morning after I just had kind of the rough outline for this and the idea of it, and the guy in front of me who was checking in, his name was Ed Kelly. So I was like, okay, there's a sign. And then as I was walking away, he was like joking with the front desk people, and they're like, oh, Ed, you always tell such a great story. So I was like, okay, I think this is maybe where to go. And since I did, I believed in the book and I enjoyed writing the book, and so everything fell together really quickly. I was recommended to an agent, Kim Witherspoon, who is an excellent agent. And she got it on a Thursday afternoon, and Monday morning there was an email in my inbox saying Kim wants to talk to you. And so signed with her immediately, and then just went through like really cursory edits, and then went to, it was picked up by Random House. So it went quickly after that, but there were many years where it did not go quickly, so.
Thank you.
Dream scenario.
Yeah, well, that one. Yeah.
Sarah.
Yeah, hi Liz.
Hi. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You talked about kind of the big picture journey.
Uh-huh.
Tell us about your daily process, the process of actually getting words on the page. What did that look like for you during this?
So I, have a day job. So I was producing videos for Target, and actually writing this billed the most freelance hours I ever had. And so I think there's definitely a freedom in not knowing if anything's gonna happen to your book, because there's no other voices in your head. Like now there's 250 voices in my head, but at the time there were none. And so, I just snuck 500 word chunks where I could. The last 500 were usually like in bed on my laptop. My laptop fell out of the car several years ago, and so the screen is all cracked. So I wrote this book lying on the couch or sitting in bed with like a cracked laptop, and so there's always like say on the Random House Instagram account, like, show us your workspace, and it's just like, that would not be. Everyone's got like a very organized desk, and they've got their 3 beverages, and they've got like their inspirational quotes, and it's like, oh yeah, don't come to me.
That's great. Thank you.
Was it hard or easy to find the words for all of your characters? Did it flow out, or did it take some time to develop one after one?
No, dialogue came quickly. It was, you know, from draft to draft, more detail came in. So kind of the first draft is very like plot, and then dialogue, and then plot, and then nothing, you know. So then the next chapter, there's a little more detail, or the next draft, there's a little more detail, then there's a little more detail. And, you know, this book went through many things. Like, at one point, there was another daughter, there was another death. I mean, there was a lot going on. And so yeah, I mean, it just kind of found itself. I mean, that was the other thing that was great for me as a writer, was the 3-week countdown of the tournament. I mean, that was kind of a structure I needed. Also, like, you know, I read somewhere, like, if you're gonna do women's fiction, commercial fiction, like 85,000 words is really where you should be. So that was a structure for me. I mean, I needed these guidelines. And when I didn't have them in previous books, I really didn't. I mean, it was a mess. Yeah. Yes, Heather.
I'm just wondering how hard it was to keep fictional from nonfiction.
Well, I mean,
Really?
yes, there are elements here, obviously. This is my cousin, Heather. We shared the grandmothers and grandfather. I mean, there were some elements there. Other things, like my mom thought, you know, like, you remembered a lot. It's like, no, I really didn't. I just made up a lot of stuff, but it happened, you know, happened to be. I mean, I think there's just certain assumptions you can make about, like, mid-20th century men and mid-20th century women. And, you know, like, there's going to be a lot of cigarettes. There's going to be drinking. There's going to be a lot of, like,
Lung cancer.
yeah, like lung cancer, and patriarchal, you know, all this stuff. So there were times where I mean, earlier drafts probably were not as fictionalized, and they became more fictionalized. Yeah, I thought about my mom reading it, and your mom reading it, and they became more fictionalized. Yes, Josh.
Josh Lane,
Yes.
drawing and training videos.
Yeah.
As a mom yourself,
Yeah.
how much of you is in each of these moms? And how did you stop yourself from writing too much of yourself? Did you just realize you were doing intimacy?
I mean, I think just because of ages, like, I had never really seen myself in the two grandmothers, you know, just because I'm not a grandmother age, you know, I guess I didn't really see myself in them as much, because one is not very involved, one's overly involved. And then, you know, Sherry, the middle-aged woman, I mean, I probably saw more of myself in her, just, you know, that she was a nurse, she was an ER nurse, which she enjoyed, and then there was conflict with home, so financially they were in a position, her husband was a lawyer, to give that up, and she always kind of, I mean, there's a passage where you know, she sometimes would just tell her kids these horror tales from the ER about, like, the guy with the pipe through his forehead, and the kids are like, ooh, before mom sounds like a mess, you know, we like after mom. And so, you know, I think that comes, like, now that my kids are teenagers, you know, there's more stories about, you know, I traveled a lot when I was young, and there's stories that come out about that, and I mean, there is really this desire that you want your kids to see you as something other than just a mother. You know, you want them to start looking at you as a woman too, although then they see a lot of failure and faults, so, you know, it's kind of a double-edged sword, but you know, I mean, you want them to think of you as more than mom, I think. Oh, yes, well, this is my daughter.
So, are you planning to write more about multi-generational women, and would you ever focus more, like, on Sherry or Laura in their relationship to their mother and grandmothers? Because, like, here you focus more on Dale.
Yeah, I mean, I did think of that. I mean, you know, usually you don't write a sequel unless the original does well, so we'll see. I think yes, but multi-generational, I think that's something that really, it does interest me, and I'm not, you know, I don't want to get too much into it, but book I'm working on now, you know, there's again like a grandmother-granddaughter relationship at the heart of it, because I think that's very interesting too, because it's this relationship where, you know, the grandmother has so much love for the grandchild, and the grandchild has, you know, sees this grandparent as like a major person, but it's this brokered relationship, you know, you can never, the grandmother cannot get to the grandchild except through the mother, you know, I mean, that's how it works, and so it can be this fraught relationship too, because you have to have a good relationship with your child to get to their child. I mean, it's probably one of the only relationships in your life that is that intense, but it's not, I mean, like I said, there's a lot of strings attached. So I think that's sort of an interesting position as well. Yes, Sherry.
Thank you for naming one of your characters. On that note, is there one of the characters whose voice you found yourself especially like delighted to be able to write and really enjoyed, and
I mean,
why?
I did really like writing Evelyn. She's kind of the hustler character in it. You know, the women of Soleil City, the older women, I mean, they were, you know, they lived the 20th century. They were born in the 20s, and then they, you know, started school during the Depression, and then they became young adults during, you know, the beginning of war, and then, you know, everything, I mean, they lived through it all. And so, you know, Evelyn was dropped off at an orphanage, like many were, because the parents just couldn't take care of her, and she did everything she had to do to get by in life. And so, you know, that was fun writing a character who, she had a son, and they were not close. But I mean, it was fun writing a character who just, you know, just did what she had to do to without really thinking about or caring about other people. I mean, that sounds like psychopathic, but I mean, she wasn't a psychopath. Yeah.
Did you do a lot of research on the history of the 20th century to kind of backstory some of the backstory of those characters?
I mean, I did, probably not as much as I could have, but yeah, I did look, you know, I read about like, you know, work during the war, like how would that have worked? Marlis was a model in New York, and she was not getting jobs, and so she went and she started working in the Navy Yard in Brooklyn, and then there was an event, and then she moved up to Boston. And so, I mean, I think like some of that I had to research. Obviously, the synchronized swimming I had to research. But otherwise, you know, not really. Yeah.
That's when it's fun though, watching YouTube becomes work.
Yeah. There's a I think they're called the Honeybees. It's a group out of Harlem of older women, I think up to age 90, that have this synchronized swimming group, and they've had it for over 20 years, maybe 30 years. And so when, you know, this editor I was working with said, this is where you have to be, I just kind of freaked out. So I was like, you know, I'm thinking of like Olympic level synchronized swimming. But when you see it done as a more community exercise, or a more like, I mean, as they say in the book, like, this is synchronized swimming for old broads. You know, and it really is, it is just sort of a fluid, more, there's not a lot of challenging moves, I guess we'll say. So then that made me feel better, and that, you know, this is how this could work. Okay. Oh, yes.
Any interest in drawing upon your seasoned experience at a local big box retailer? And all of the interesting people you met there?
Yeah, I mean, come speak to me about, I mean, oh my, our little group of 40 people, there was, let's just say, everything that went from murder, there was murder, to a Nepo baby. I mean, very, very,
I heard you worked with Bob Dylan's nephew.
yes, that is who I did work with, yes. Also, also one of the nation's premier conspiracy theorists. Who trades only in gold and has been deplatformed on everything, so.
Why are they in a Target video?
They work for Target, they were paid by Target.
I have questions again.
I was fired by Target. Yeah. But yeah, so it's very, I mean, that's the thing, like, obviously, I would have loved to have had writing success as a younger woman. But I think, the years of working and being out in the community and being with people, I mean, you definitely get something from that. And I think you can, I think the biggest compliment I've gotten on this book is like, I would have had no idea this was a debut. And I mean, that's great to hear. And I think it isn't just my writing skill. I think it's also just like having met and experienced a lot more people in life and kind of, stored that in the back of my mind somewhere and being able to pull from that. Yes, Kara.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Knowing you primarily as a visual storyteller,
Yeah.
like, it's interesting to me, like, because when we solve problems in video, you're very quick and you're very fast and you're solution oriented. Did you find that translated into writing? Like, if you had a plot challenge,
Yeah.
did you have like a methodology, or were you like just go eat toast and forget about it, or like what happened? Like,
I mean, first of all, I'm a pretty brutal editor on myself. Like, I would very easily just, like I said, remove a character, cut a chapter. I mean, I was fine doing that. I think I've also been a freelance copywriter for years, kind of alternate between video producer and copywriter. And, so I was not dear about any of this. Like, always starting to, this is really great, but, always waiting for the but. So I was very okay with just slashing and burning many things. But yeah, I mean, walks are great. And then the other thing is, even though I had this word count and I needed to get, I had time frames for myself, taking a week off sometimes and just letting it simmer and just thinking, like the shower is great for that too. I take very long showers, so it's work.
Week-long showers?
Well, I mean, sometimes. But yeah, just letting things simmer, they kind of resolve themselves in the end. That's also very helpful. I know like the recommendation with writer's block is like just write through it. And I mean, I really do try, but I think sometimes taking a moment back and just really like considering the story and being able to look at it from a different place, it helps. Definitely helps.
I'm an older author too, and I came out of a corporate background and corporate communication. You cannot buy that ability that you have gained over 20-some years
Yeah.
to be able to be edited
Yes.
and to take feedback and to see where you need to edit yourself. You just can't buy it. You only earn it over time. I think you're really lucky to come into it with that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, that was sort of working with my editor, who would also forget that this is my first book. I mean, she's wonderful and I love her, but she would be like, I keep forgetting it's not your fourth, which is great, but I think part of that was like, she would send me a note, like, we gotta rewrite this chapter, and I'd just be like, all right, fine, I'm done, I do not take it personally anymore. And, that's the other thing too, is that, writing is an art, and it's, I don't know if I call myself an artist, but I know many writers do. And, but I really was looking at this as, this is a business too. And I wanted to sell the book. I wanted to have people read the book, that's the only way you can get readers is if it's somewhat, sellable and commercial. So, yeah, I mean, that's something that I think you learn.
Yeah.
That you just can't be too precious. I mean, it's all commerce. Yes, Aunt Lynn.
As your aunt.
Yeah.
Even
From
though you
Florida.
were fiction,
Yeah, from Florida, yeah.
you did an amazing job of putting justice with our family.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. A highly fictionalized version of the family.
That's golden though, right? That's a big sigh of relief, right?
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah. I did definitely hold my breath the first time I read it. And And you too, Lynn, I was like, yes, Josh again.
So, I've noticed this 2010, I've never seen you panic ever in all the stuff that we've done together. Did you ever have like a small moment of panic, even when you started with your mom reading it? Like, is there ever a moment you're like, oh, like a panic?
I don't think so, but again, that was sort of the freedom of like not having anyone expecting this from me. Like, I mean, I was writing it on, what, did I panic? When did I panic?
A month ago.
Oh, well, I mean, pre-publication, oh yeah, there's panic there, you know, there's this little site that's the devil called Goodreads, and,
Well, that's when it's all out of your control. You can't control any of that.
Right.
Yeah, so that isn't a
so Kathy with your 2 stars, you know. But, and she's alone in this, so, but yeah, there's pre-publication, but again, there's people involved, like, you know, there's people expecting things, and of course, there's comparison, which is the theft of happiness, we all know that one, but how do you not do it, you know, and so, yes, post-selling the book, there was panic. Writing the book, no, because, I mean, I didn't know if anyone was gonna, I mean, I have shelved books, you know, was this another shelved book? I didn't know, you know. Yes, Laura.
Well, thank you also for naming a character after
Yes.
me. And I did do synchronized swimming in junior high.
Oh, did you?
I'm really excited to read it. How will you be traveling to promote the book, or like how will you be involved, and kind of what's the plan? Like what happens now?
Well, debut authors kind of have a lot on themselves to build. So instead of traveling, I would really love to do book clubs. So if any of you are involved in a local book club or know someone who's involved in a local book club, I would love to come to the book club, or if you have relatives abroad, you know, in other places, I can virtually Zoom in. But yeah, that's how I'd like to promote this, is just really being open to attending book clubs.
Ours is in Florida.
Yeah, well, some country, yeah.
Time for one more. Come on, I know it's burning in you. Come on. There you go.
Yes,
In
Laura's
the
mom.
introduction, she said that you'd lived in all these different countries.
Yeah.
Tell us about that. I love
Oh.
to travel, and that intrigued me.
Yeah, that was kind of the interesting part of my life. Well, I was born in St. Paul, and now I've returned to St. Paul, but in between, you know, I think there's, you know, you just starting in high school, I was an exchange student my whole junior year. I lived in South Africa. And then during college, I studied in Hungary, and then I lived in Germany for a summer. I lived in Israel for a summer. I went to film school in Australia. That was mainly because it was cheap, and I knew Australians beating them from traveling. But yeah, I mean, there's, you know, it was this any place is better than home mentality, I think, when you're young. And then I returned home, and you know, I had a film degree and got a job at the Minnesota Film Board, and you know, TPT for a while. I mean, I started working in my field, and then started producing videos. So, you know, it's sort of this idea of, you know, I had to travel to find out that I was where I was supposed to be.
Can I ask one last question?
Yes.
So you mentioned book clubs.
Yes.
How else can we, as this like fellowship of support for you, support the book? Like, it makes a great gift, I bet.
Yes.
What else can we do to support the book?
Well, that's the joy of having a paperback, right? Like, they're portable, and they're more affordable, and so, yeah, you can buy 2 for the price of a hardback. And, you know, put one in the neighborhood, little library, leave them, if you're traveling this summer, you can leave one, you know, at the place with with a bookshelf. But yeah, I mean, that's definitely, thank you for asking, Liz. I mean, the support is sales, you know, again, it's all about the sales.
Well, they can also go on every single outlet you can think of and leave her 5 stars.
Yes.
Ah, okay.
Help her.
Yeah, take that, Cassie.
Help her beat the algorithms.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, don't forget the joy of social media.
Yes.
Post your picture, your book, and rave about how much you loved it, and say they are signed copies at Majors and Quinn.
Yes. And, yeah, because my daughter, who doesn't even use her name and has a private account, and I don't even know her about her account account until like 2 days ago, and more followers than I do. So follow me on social media too, and tag me, and again, the reviews are great, you know, unless you hate it, then don't.
They're friends, they'll still give you 5 stars.
Yeah. I'm telling you that too, it really messes with your average, so.
Oh, and don't, if you read any of the goofy 1 stars, because oh boy, do they show up. It was a great book, but I hated the audiobook, so I'm giving it 1 star.
Yeah.
Don't tell her about that. Yeah, my brother used to think it was hysterical to tell me about all my 1 and 2 stars, and I don't think that's hysterical.
Well, and there's also like, I don't think people do anymore, but they used to like, I hated this book, and they'll tag the author. It's like,
Oh, they still do.
Yeah. I mean, there's, you know, like, I mean, I also am excited for this to be out in the world and to be with, I'll call you all normal readers, because I've been with, you know, advanced readers where it's like a competitive sport, you know, like how many arcs can I get through, how many reviews can I write, because they want to keep getting the free books. And so, like, you know, I think they're reading the book in a day or a day and a half, and they're missing things. And, so yes, I am excited to see what people who have a moment and are more not 8-book-a-week readers are getting from it.
Can I just take one more moment to thank Majors and Quinn and to give independent bookstores a huge shout out. They are really the people who put books in readers' hands, and they're the ones who sponsor these events for us, and it's your purchases that help make these events happen. And so thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for buying from Majors and Quinn. Thank you for supporting Sarah. I also want to give a shout out to the Book Fairy in Minnesota, who is here tonight, and Pamela Klingerhorn. What next event do you have? Because I want to give a shout out to your events.
Saturday at the Parkway Theater in Minneapolis, we have Kate Quinn, author of historical fiction. She's a New York Times bestselling author, and she'll be at the Parkway Theater at noon talking with beloved Lorna Landvik from Minnesota.
Yeah. If you're on social media, follow Literature Lovers Night Out, which is Pamela's wonderful, wonderful organization, and you will always meet great writers.
You will be seeing this book display.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is that we live in this amazing literary community because we can all hunker down 7 months a year and not have, you know, and really write. I don't know how you could write in a beautiful tropical place. I would be too distracted, but, so yeah, definitely, you know, support your local bookstores and your local writers, and thank you all for coming. This is very overwhelming turnout. I was at an event last week, and it was described as a professional wedding, and I mean, it kind of feels like that. It feels like just kind of everyone from every aspect. So 2 people I know have been up since 3 this morning, and my brother flew in. That was a total surprise. Flew in from, he lives in LA, but he was actually in Hawaii, and then just went from one gate to another and came here. And that is the power of the maternal strong hand.
Mm-hmm.